At some of the top stories. More than 500 people have been killed in southern Syria's Swida province after days of heavy clashes. A war monitor says the dead include Druze fighters, civilians, Bedouin tribesmen and dozens of Syrian troops. Israeli airstrikes killed 22 in Gaza, including 2 at a church frequently mentioned by Pope Francis, according to the Gazan Health Ministry. Among the dead were aid truck guards, as ceasefire talks in Doha showed little progress. Torrential monsoon rains have killed 54 people in Pakistan in a single day, bringing the season's death toll to nearly 180. Hundreds were evacuated from flooded villages in Punjab as homes collapsed and rivers overflowed. Moscow condemned Israel's strikes on Syria, calling them a gross violation of the country's sovereignty and international law. Russia's foreign ministry issued a statement saying the attacks deserve strong condemnation and called for respect of Syria's territorial integrity. A new US assessment has found that American strikes in June destroyed just 1 of 3 targeted Iranian nuclear sites, NBC News reported. Furthermore, President Trump reportedly rejected a broader military plan that would have involved weeks of strikes on Iran's nuclear program. Russia has reportedly handed over the bodies of 1,000 dead soldiers back to Kyiv, according to negotiators. It comes amid continued calls for peace in the war, which has seen intensified strikes reported by both sides. The Indian Pilot Federation are among the bodies to condemn a report by the Wall Street Journal that points towards the captain's actions. Investigations into the deadly AI-171 crash that killed 275 people are still ongoing. At least 69 people have died after a devastating blaze inside a shopping mall in eastern Iraq. The fire engulfed a 5-story building in Quds City, with an investigation underway as a 3-day mourning period is announced. Now we start in the Middle East, where over 500 people have now been killed in Syria's southern Swida province, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The rising death toll follows several days of violent clashes that prompted the deployment of government troops to the predominantly Druze region. The monitor says 79 Druze fighters and 154 civilians from Swida were among the dead, including 83 people reportedly executed by security forces from Syria's defense and interior ministries. On the government side, 243 personnel have been killed, along with 18 Bedouin fighters. The report also cites retaliatory executions of 3 Bedouin tribesmen by Druze fighters. The heavy toll underscores deepening fractures within Syria just months after the new transitional government took power following the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Meanwhile, a senior Kurdish official has called on Damascus to reassess its stance on minorities. Bedran Sia Kurd from the Kurdish-led administration in northeast Syria urged the leadership to engage in a national dialogue and respect Syria's ethnic and religious diversity. His appeal comes amid fears that minority groups, including Druze and Kurds, are being sidelined in the current political and military push to centralize authority. The situation in Swida remains tense, with reports of sporadic gunfire and tank movement in some neighborhoods. We're now joined by John Rossamondo, who's the president of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, John, for joining us. I wanted to first start with that reaction from the Kurdish officials. How significant is this public appeal in Damascus for the broader dynamics of Syrian governments since the fall of Bashar al-Assad just a few months ago? How would you analyse the current situation that is unfolding in Syria, seemingly by the hour?
Well, let's look at it this way. You have, Ahmed Shara, formerly Abu Mohammed al-Jawani, who headed the former al-Qaeda organization, Jabhat al-Nusra, is now the nominal president. Either Shara is just a figurehead who has no real power, or it's like in Libya where the militias run everything. You have jihadis in Suwaida wearing ISIS patches, massacring civilians in a Suwaida hospital. You have men being assaulted and having their mustaches ripped off by jihadis to try to religiously humiliate them. So it's a really horrible situation, and the Kurds in the Northeast are watching and saying, we don't want to be part of this.
Yes, and John, obviously yesterday we saw a huge Israeli strike on the military HQ in the Syrian capital. Israel maintains that it is protecting the Druze minority in Syria. Given these recent clashes, what is the likelihood of further violence erupting both in Syria and more regionally as well?
Well, right now, Syria is completely in a state of flux. I think that Israel went and dropped a bomb outside the Syrian Defense Ministry as a reminder to them to clear things up. I mean, I think that what we're seeing is that Damascus really does not have direct control, and if it does, it doesn't care about what the jihadis do. Back in March, you had Unit 400, which is a HTS Special Forces operation that killed 1,500 Alawites. So this is a really deadly situation.
Well, yes, of course. We actually saw Donald Trump meet the new Syrian leader back in May in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, along with him lifting the the sanctions which had been in place for years. In regards to relations with the United States and how the United States might react to this ongoing and escalating situation, what do you think Washington is thinking right now?
Well, unfortunately, we've seen President Trump outsource his foreign policy to Saudi Arabia, to Turkey, and to Qatar in this respect. The head of the National Security Council's Middle East North Africa division, who opposed this policy, was fired. So I think that you're going to see more effort by Ambassador Barak, who's Trump's Syria envoy, to cover this up and just want to play like everything's normal.
Let's move on to regional implications now. You have neighbouring states, including Turkey and, of course, Iran, but you also have foreign influence inside Syria, e.g. Russia, who has a huge presence in the Middle Eastern country. How might this development affect Syria's relations with these neighbouring states and also external backers like Moscow as well?
Well, let's put it this way. Turkey and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is the ruling group in Syria, have an intimate relationship. All the top leaders are affiliated with Turkish intelligence, the MIT. Iran likely will be trying to stir up the Shia population, which has a grievance now against HTS because of persecution of the Shia. Russia has only real interest keeping the naval port in Tartus that it's occupied for 50 years.
Yes, and in your view, what can these international actors, including the United Nations, in fact, and obviously and also regional organisations, play in ensuring minority protection, stability, de-escalation here in Syria's post-Assad order?
Well, I think that the biggest problem you have, according to my sources in the northeast of Syria, is that you have an Islamist and Arabic supremacist ideology that does not really care about the needs of the minorities. The policy that the Trump administration is pursuing to try to force everybody under Damascus will lead to another civil war. We had the same problem in the first civil war because everybody was suppressed under the Arab supremacism of Bashar al-Assad.
John Rossomando, thank you very much. Always a pleasure having your insight on the programme. We now move over to the Middle East, where in the West Bank, the Israeli military has demolished the homes of 3 Palestinians accused of deadly shooting attacks. The homes, located in Qabatiya, belonged to Mohammed Zakana, Mohammed Nazal and Wael Lalu, all of whom were allegedly linked to armed attacks earlier this year by the Israeli Defense Forces. Zakana and Nazal were reportedly behind a shooting which killed an off-duty Israeli police officer and 2 civilians. Lalu was accused of a similar attack in the Jordan Valley in August, which claimed the life of a civilian. While Israel justifies the demolitions as a measure of deterrence, this practice is widely condemned by rights groups who see it as a collective form of punishment that harms families. Critics argue that these actions only fuel resentment and violence. We now move on to South Asia now, where amid the growing speculations over what may have transpired in the tragic Air India plane crash that killed 275 people last month, the Wall Street Journal has released a new report pointing to potential pilot error as a key factor. The findings cite supposed procedural mistakes, questionable cockpit choices and communication breakdowns during vital moments of the flight. Although the official probe remains ongoing, the emphasis on the pilot's role raises many questions and criticism from aviation experts and unions. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau has responded, stating that certain sections of the international media are attempting to draw conclusions based on selective and unverified reporting. The Bureau clarified that the investigation is still ongoing and it is too early to arrive at any definitive conclusions. It emphasised that a final investigation report will be released in due course, which will include the root causes of the crash along with specific safety recommendations. I'm now going to read out a few excerpts from this report, this Wall Street Journal report that was released today. A black box recording of dialogue between the 2 flights indicates that it was the captain who turned off switches that controlled fuel flowing to the plane's 2 engines, according to people familiar with US officials. Early assessment of evidence uncovered in the crash investigation. And I will continue reading go to a different excerpt. The recording also captures the emotional state of the 2 pilots during the incident, which has not been mentioned in the preliminary report. The first officer expressed surprise and then panicked, these people said, while the captain seemed to remain calm. It also says that the exchange between the 2 crew members, one experienced and composed, the other shocked and panicked, is likely to be crucial in understanding the decision-making in the cockpit. I'm going to continue reading to a different section of said Wall Street Journal report. It also, as the pilot is actively flying and likely would have had his hands pulling back on the Dreamliner's controls at that stage of the flight, according to US pilots who have read the Indian authorities' report. Saab Harwal, as the pilot monitoring, would have been more likely to have his hands free as he oversaw the operation. The Wall Street not only speculates here that it was the pilot's fault, but even mentions that it could in fact be the senior pilot's wrongdoing. I'm going to read a little further into this before we get into our guest discussion. The preliminary details have fueled the belief among some US officials that criminal authorities should review the matter, as would likely be the case if the crash had occurred on American soil, people familiar with the matter said. In the US, accident investigators historically have involved agencies such as the FBI if they believe a potential crime occurred rather than a safety mishap. This is an excerpt that hints about a future criminal case in regards to the accident. We're now joined by our guest, Vipul Saxena, who's an aviation expert. She joins us from the Indian capital. Thank you very much for joining us. I just wanted to get your initial thoughts on this Wall Street Journal report, very direct, before the final investigation has come out by the Indian government. What are your thoughts?
Yes, firstly, I would like to say that I think Wall Street Journal has come out with their own interpretation, because in the preliminary report, nowhere it is mentioned that which pilot has talked what. So I think they're reading beyond the reported material. So I would like to refute what Wall Street Journal has covered. I think the report made by WSJ is all based on assumptions. Now, being a pilot myself and also a aeronautical engineer, and I've flown for almost 15-20 years, I would like to interpret the report like this: that the fuel supply in the aircraft is not only from the fuel switch. There are other circuitry also through which the fuel supply is controlled, and these are all electromagnetic or electrical supply which control the fuel supply. So, in my interpretation of whatever has come in the preliminary report is, it seems that because of some electrical malfunction, which was also corroborated by the electrical failures by one passenger who survived. He mentioned that there was a light flickering and all that. So I assume that there was an electrical malfunction, which basically starved the engine, and it gave some warning signs, electrical warning light warning lights in the cockpit to the pilot, and that is why pilot asked, "Did you switch off the engine, because engine parameters must have started going down?" And that is why other pilots said, "No, I did not do it." And subsequent to that, the natural reaction of any pilot would be to put the fuel switch off and again bring it back to run. This is how I would interpret whatever has been mentioned in the preliminary report. I think what WSJ is saying is beyond the assumptions and beyond the contents of the report.
Indeed, Saxena. What additional safeguards here, such as cockpit image recorders or cross-checks, could enhance situational awareness during these critical stages of these flights?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, I said, what additional safeguards, such as cockpit image recorders, there has been talks due to this crash of involving videos to increase the amount of evidence if something like this would go wrong. An incident happened in Australia in this year, which the Australians said that the video evidence was crucial. However, there has been some pushback of this, saying it violates pilots' privacy in the cockpit. And so how do you think, moving forward, could the aviation industry learn from this problem here, this incident?
No, your voice is not clear. I'm not able to hear you clearly. Is it about installation of camera in the cockpit?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah. So I think this is a matter of regulatory privacy convenience of the pilots. I think this needs to be deliberated and discussed at large at various levels, and then only something should be taken. Some decision should be taken that which part of the cockpit should be covered by a camera, which should not be covered by camera. I think as long as they cover the control panel and the screen, I don't think there should be a problem personally.
Yes, thank you very much, Vipul Saxena, for joining us on the programme. We will bring you all the updates that we can in regards to the ongoing situation with that. We now move over to the United Kingdom now, where the government has announced its plans to reduce the voting age for general elections from 18 to 16, fulfilling a promise made prior to last year's elections. The voting age change is likely to prove previous contentious, with critics previously arguing it is self-serving, as the newly enfranchised teenagers are seen as more likely to support the centre-left Labour Party. The government will have to bring legislation before Parliament, where it has a comfortable majority to make the changes. Labour ministers in the United Kingdom insist the change is intended to modernise our democracy and boost turnout, while aligning general elections with the existing voting age for elections for the devolved regional parliaments in Scotland and Wales. Let's take a listen in to what the Parliament had to say.
The strategy we have published today will set out how we will legislate and implement provisions to extend the voter franchise to 16 and 17-year-olds, increase participation in our elections, tackle the inconsistencies in voter ID rules, and protect our democracy by overhauling our political finance rules.
We're now joined by Keith Faz, who's a former British minister. He joins us live from Costa Rica. Keith, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Pleasure to have you as always. From your experience in British politics, this has obviously been an ongoing debate for years. What are the strongest arguments for and against lowering the voting age to 16 years old?
Good morning, Joshua from South America. I think it's a pretty exciting decision. Anything that seeks to renew democracy is something we can welcome. The problem is, as I approach my 70th birthday, I forgot what it was like when I was 16. You're much nearer to 16 than I am. So you will know what a 16-year-old Joshua would have been like. Would you have been interested in politics? I don't know. Only individuals will know. In South America, actually, Argentina and Ecuador both allow voting at 16. The problem with opening this voting as they have done, there's no guarantee that young people will vote for the centre-left party. The usual course of action when you're very young and you get your first vote is actually you ask mum and dad and you say, how do you think we should vote? And mum and dad would say, well, I've always voted Labour or I've always voted Conservative. But because of the nature of politics around the world today, as reflected in your NewsX broadcasts, it's all very volatile. There could be quite a lot of young people deciding to vote for the Reform Party. The former leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has opened his own party. We don't know its name yet. A lot of young people have been politicised by the Middle East, politicised by student grants and loans. So you can't really tell how people will vote at that age. But of course, the next thing, Joshua, is if you allow a vote at 16 and 17, you should really allow those people to stand for Parliament. When they extended the franchise to 18-year-olds, an 18-year-old was then, you could have them in Parliament. So this is where it might lead. I would have preferred the government, as well as announcing this, to also do something about our House of Lords, our Rajya Sabha, appointing people to the legislature rather than actually getting them elected. So if this is the first step, it's very welcome, but a lot of complications will arise, I'm sure.
Keith, what we can't distract ourselves from is the importance of social media in modern politics. We have mentioned that it's seen that 16-year-olds are more likely to vote to the centre-left. However, we also know that Nigel Farage's Reform Party has more followers on TikTok and Instagram than most of the other British politicians. Nigel Farage is the top followed British politician on TikTok, at least. What do you think the implications are going to be moving forward in that regard, given that Reform seems to know how to crack this social media landscape?
You're absolutely right. You've got it in one. Reform on the right, the Corbyn Sultana party on the left, the fact that young people of 16 and 17, and I'm not prejudging here, Joshua, because I didn't know you when you were 16 or 17, but I can remember myself. I would probably have gone to mum and said, I've just got this card through the post. Who do you vote for? And I'm going to follow what you say. There again, there are young people who are 16 and 17, and I know quite a few of them who are relatives or godchildren, who will do exactly the opposite of what their parents are going to do. So I don't think we should prejudge. It is being sold as an extension of democracy. My goodness, there's so much wrong with our political structure, which is that you elect a government for 5 years with a majority, and no matter what happens in the world, it's still got a majority of over 100. That's a real problem in our democracy. Maybe we should also look at changing the way people vote, single transferable vote, more parties coming forward. I think these are probably the ways in which you can renew democracy. But you're right, those who manage to control, or rather exhibit their policies on social media, are more likely to attract the interest of 16 and 17-year-olds, who are young adults, no doubt about that, but will then be saying, can we stand for Parliament, please? If you're giving us the right to vote, why don't you allow us to become MPs? That's where the debate will become very, very interesting. I'm not against that, but the fact is, that is the next ask, apart from the fact that part of our chambers are totally undemocratic. Probably first past the post in voting is totally undemocratic. It disenfranchises all the other people who voted for other parties. Maybe we should get each constituency to elect people who have 51% of the vote in their local area, as they do in places like France. Yes. So a lot is open as a result of this very welcome decision.
Keith Vaz, thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure having your insight. We now move over to the Indo-Pacific, where 2 people have sadly died and around 1,000 residents have been evacuated as heavy rains battered central South Korea. The downpours have triggered landslides and severe flooding, particularly in South Chungcheon province. A retaining wall collapsed onto a moving vehicle in Osan, killing the driver while in Seosan. A man was found dead in a flooded car earlier today. 2 others were also injured, including one with hypothermia. Seosan, the hardest hit area, recorded 344 millimetres of rain since Wednesday evening, with a record 114.9 millimetres falling in just 1 hour as the rain front moves north. The government has issued high-level alerts for Chungcheon provinces and southern Gyeonggi. Heavy rain is also expected to continue until Saturday, with as much as 200 millimetres expected in parts of the south. We're now joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar, who's a journalist for the Korea Herald. He joins us from the South Korean capital of Seoul. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, for joining us on the programme. How unprecedented are these levels of rainfall in the context of South Korea's climate history? And what more can you tell us about this ongoing situation?
Casualties are mounting, and now you were mentioning 2 persons have died, but the numbers have gone up to 4 as of 6 p.m. This evening. But we don't know, in overnight also more casualties can be expected. When I'm talking to you, it's raining cats and dogs outside my home. So you can see the intensity. And many schools in some of the areas have been closed. These torrential rains have caused huge damage. A lot of trains have been stopped right now because of this heavy rain, their routes have been stopped and they are not operational, and many of the sea routes also have been stopped. So we can see that many casualties may come by tomorrow. So we should not see it as a small disaster. It's a huge disaster, and if we see the Ministry of Interior and Safety announcements also, they have their alert says it is a severe level, which means they are preparing for the emergency level alert as well.
Yes, just briefly, Dr. Kumar, as we don't have much time, what's the emergency and government response been like to this unprecedented situation?
The government is very alert because in the evening, you have correctly pointed out that by this evening, Chungcheong Bukto was the most severely suffered, and then the Gyeonggi-do province was also suffering. But now, in the late evening, around 8 or 9 p.m., news are coming out that even areas of Gwangju, which is in the Jeolla province, it has been damaged due to this torrential rains, and many people have been evacuated there too. The numbers are going to increase, and unfortunately, the rain forecast is up to the weekends too, so we can see more disasters.
Yes, Dr. Kumar, thank you very much for joining us. We now move on to some updates from the world of business. South Korea's Supreme Court has cleared Samsung chairman Jae Lee of all charges in a high-profile merger fraud case dating back to 2015. The ruling upholds a lower court decision that dismissed allegations of accounting fraud and stock manipulation over an $8 billion merger between Samsung C&T and Chiel Industries. The verdict removes a major legal cloud hanging over the tech giant's leader, allowing Lee to fully focus on Samsung's long-term strategy, especially its push into artificial intelligence chips. Analysts say the decision could strengthen management stability and drive future innovation. Qantas Airways has obtained a court injunction to block the access or publication of customer data stolen in a major cyber attack earlier this month. The breach affected 5.7 million customers, marking Australia's biggest data leak in years. While no credit card, financial or passport details were accessed, Qantas says it has notified all affected customers and is working with federal police and cybersecurity agencies to investigate. However, there is currently no evidence that the stolen data has been released. Asian markets traded sideways as investors awaited key tech earnings and monitored uncertainty around FED chair Jerome Powell's future. Chipmaker TSMC is expected to record second quarter profits, though US tariffs and a strong Taiwan dollar may cloud its outlook. Netflix results are also in focus, with analysts warning that the stock must beat and raise after outperforming the S&P 500 by 33 points this year. Meanwhile, Canada's Couche Tard has dropped its $47 billion takeover bid for Japan's Seven & I, ending what would have been the largest foreign buyout in Japanese history. Volvo Cars reported a sharp drop in second quarter operating profits, but still managed to beat analyst expectations, sending its shares up nearly 8%. The Swedish automaker, the first European car maker to report this earnings season, cited softening demand and new tariffs as a major headwind. Weak consumer confidence and growing competition from Chinese EV makers are also weighing on performance. However, much of the decline was already priced in by investors, who anticipated a tough quarter given ongoing trade tensions. Swiss engineering giant ABB reported its strongest ever second quarter intake, driven by a 37% surge in demand from the United States and rising orders for data center products powering artificial intelligence. The US, ABB's largest market, saw rapid growth amid recent AI and energy investments pushed by President Trump. Data centers orders rose by double digits, setting a strong outlook for the rest of the year. Despite tariff-related uncertainties, ABB expects continued revenue growth in its third quarter. Shares were up 3.1% in Zurich pre-market trading. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.